So people are fighting back. They're fighting back in the courts. They're fighting back in DC. They're fighting back at the state level, and they're fighting back in the streets. Of course, there will be a lot of pushback from the fascist party in power, which controls everything. And do not forget, Donald Trump has the illegitimate corrupt super majority of the Supreme Court in his back pocket. So what does that mean? Does that mean that we stop, we give up? No, of course not. It means that we fight harder, we fight smarter, we become more strategic, and we get everybody we know involved in this thing, because that is our only hope. Let's dive in. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this evening's episode of Mary Trump Live. It is great to have you here with me. Yesterday, on February 16th, Donald posted the following on his failing social media platform. Yes, that is a quote from Napoleon, the guy who pretended to believe in Republican government. And it says, "He who saves his country does not violate any law." Yeah, well, he's eating Richard Nixon's lunch now. So this obviously is fueling fears about Donald's authoritarian leanings, which I think is pulling a punch. He's a fascist, surrounded by fascists. The White House, of course, refused to clarify its meaning, which is a clarification that would have been completely unnecessary. First of all, they would have lied about it. And secondly, we know what he means. Just to recap, Donald currently faces 73 lawsuits. I thought it would be more, over unilateral actions he has taken via executive orders, or Musk has taken via the illegitimate, unconstitutional DOGE agency. Things like ending birthright citizenship, freezing congressional funds, and dismantling agencies like USAID are being challenged, which is good. But one thing that worries me, and again, this all the lawsuits have to happen. That may well be the one thing that gets us through this. But there are two potential outcomes here that make me a little nervous. One is that as these cases wind their way through the courts, some of them at least may hit roadblocks in the person of judges, the Donald appointment. Can you imagine if Aileen Cannon got her hands on something like birthright citizenship? That would be bad. But there's also the end point, which is aforementioned corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court. And as we know, based on the fact that was it last year? I don't know if it was last year or if it was the Pleistocene era, but they essentially, the Roberts Court made this the unconstitutional move to decide that a sitting president is above the law and can commit any crimes he wants as long as it is in the course of performing his official duties. So I do not hold out a lot of hope for this corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court. But then the other thing that worries me is, so far, we've had a pretty good track record of judges ruling against Donald and putting a stay on some of the more egregious actions. So two things here. What if he ignores those? That is where we've been told for a while now, the Rubicon that cannot be crossed. But also, all of this takes time. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it's being expedited because of the gravity of the situation. And we know that the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court, and no, I will never call it anything else. I'm sorry. That's why I try to say it as quickly as possible. We know that they can really speed up the process if they want to. They can slow it down if they want to. So what happens if the next judge says, I'm not ruling in your favor, but I'm lifting the stay. What happens to the people who've already been fired without cause? What happens to agencies that have already been dismantled? The dismantling of USAID is already killing people. What happens? We don't get that back. We don't get that time back. And, the other thing, I know it may in the short term, rather, it probably doesn't seem like that big a deal. But in the pursuit of dismantling these agencies or replacing career civil servants with loyalist hacks, every single agency is losing something called institutional memory, which is absolutely necessary for a highly functioning democracy, which we no longer are. We will be covering more about the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court later on in the show. Today, there were more planned protests in cities around the country. Protesters rallied nationwide on what used to be known as President's Day, but is now, I don't know what we'll call it. Let's call it We Hate Donald Day. I didn't have time to workshop it. I apologize, but we'll figure something out. So there was a banner that read, "No kings on President's Day," about no kings, unquote. Obviously opposing Donald and Elon Musk's malign influence over the government. So watch this clip.
I think the person who currently occupies the White House has no business being there and is making a chaotic mess of our country.
It's just ridiculous that these things are going unchecked.
Hey, hey, ho, ho, Elon Musk has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, Elon Musk has got to go.
That is how thousands of our fellow Americans decided to spend their day today. It is what is being called the Not My President's Day protests. They are protesting in Portland, Oregon, in Vancouver, Washington, in Orlando, in Arizona, in Utah, in West Virginia, holding signs that say, "No kings, where law ends, tyranny begins." In Houston, chanting, "No one voted for Elon Musk." Organizers say the protests are in response to, quote, "the anti-democratic and illegal actions of the Trump administration, including what can only be described at this point as a purge across multiple government institutions."
You know why I don't like Not My President's Day? Because that is making an assumption that Donald Trump is the president. So, again, I'll come up with something. Send us your suggestions in the comments. So nearly 1,000 protesters marched in Boston despite freezing temperatures, chanting against Musk and carrying signs warning of authoritarianism, including sign that read, "This is a coup," and "Cowards bow to Donald, patriots stand up." Yes. And again, we're just at the beginning of this. So I think as we go, those numbers are going to get bigger. More people are going to join us. Why, you might ask? Well, because Donald and Elon Musk are going to give people who may not have made common cause with us in the past reasons to protest them. At least here's hoping. The SAVE Act has been reintroduced by House Republicans. This would require documentary proof of citizenship for voter registration, potentially making it harder for individuals whose names don't match across documents. That may sound benign. Well, it doesn't sound benign under any circumstances, but that includes such married people, married women who change their last names. Critics warn that the bill could create significant hurdles for women who change their names after marriage, as a birth certificate alone would no longer be sufficient proof of citizenship unless paired with an additional photo ID matching the name change. This would also affect rural voters and those with disabilities disproportionately. The bill requires states to create a process for addressing documentation discrepancies, but does not explicitly guarantee that marriage certificates would be accepted, leaving implementation up to individual states. The bill includes criminal penalties for election officials who improperly register voters without proof of citizenship, creating fears of voter suppression as officials may be reluctant to approve registrations with documentation mismatches. Wow, can you say Jim Crow? It's a little hard to grapple with the scope of this particular horror. Now, this isn't the idea of going after voting rights is nothing new, of course. That's been happening since the Civil Rights Act was passed in 1965. But the Roberts Court accelerated that process in many, many ways, actually. I mean, Citizen United didn't have anything specifically to do with voter rights, but it made other people's votes count more than other people's. So this is sort of a just taking a lot of things that Republicans have been doing around the edges for years now to a whole other level. I mean, this is an exponential increase in the dangers now facing American voters, especially women, especially low-income people, especially in certain instances, people of color, especially the disabled, especially rural voters, right? Well, why don't the Republicans care that it will also affect some of their voters? Well, it won't affect the men. Today, European leaders scrambled to respond to another reckless move by Donald, who is and they are hosting an emergency EU-NATO meeting. Watch this clip.
In Paris, President Emmanuel Macron has invited European leaders, NATO representatives, EU representatives. We know UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer will be there, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will be there, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, and other leaders from Europe. The goal, as I mentioned, come up with an action plan as the U.S. charges ahead here, but also to have real conversations about security guarantees, because the security guarantees, and you heard President Zelenskyy speak about this in his interview with Kristen Welker, will fall to Europe either individually to countries or in the form of a future NATO membership for Ukraine.
Okay. It's very difficult. I keep saying this about pretty much everything I'm talking about because it happens to be true for pretty much everything I'm talking about. The scope of this disaster is extraordinarily difficult to wrap our heads around. I can only imagine how Ukrainians are feeling right now. So simultaneous, and some would argue it's fueled by the emergency EU summit. Marco Rubio landed in Saudi Arabia in preparation to a meeting with Russian officials about Ukraine and a potential quote unquote peace plan. That meeting is set for Tuesday, although it has not yet been confirmed. So we're looking at a situation in which Russia and the United States are negotiating a peace plan without Ukraine, which is the country Russia illegally invaded. Also being locked out of that meeting is the EU, which has been Ukraine's greatest ally and should have a say in how all of this plays out, especially since ceding any territory, literal or figurative, to Vladimir Putin further endangers the European Union. The other serious problem we're looking at here is that NATO itself, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is under threat. The seeds for NATO were planted in 1941 with the formation of the Atlantic Charter and then expanded in 1947 under the Truman Doctrine and became NATO in 1949. And why is that an important organization? Because NATO has been, until now, the strongest force for protecting liberal Western democracy in human history. And this malicious freak of nature, Donald Trump, because his sole purpose in life, other than amassing vast sums of money, is to do whatever the fuck Vladimir Putin tells him to do. Donald's latest move in excluding Europe has blindsided European allies and by extension posed questions about European security. France's Emmanuel Macron spoke to Donald before the emergency EU meeting in Paris today, which is at 10 a.m. Eastern. But according to a Euro News report, the US has made it crystal clear that Europe will not have a direct seat at the negotiating table. It was said to be a frank conversation. I admire your restraint, President Macron. Actually, I'm not sure if I admire restraint anymore, now that I'm thinking about it. I think that Europe needs to take the gloves off, honestly. This is a situation that, again, endangers all of the people in Europe, particularly the people in Ukraine. And we can't do anything, but the EU can. So I sincerely hope that they take this as a sign that America is no longer the ally of Ukraine or the European Union, or NATO for that matter. There's a serious likelihood that the United States will withdraw from NATO, which is not just a tragedy. It is something that is going to diminish the security of every single NATO member in ways that are unimaginable. Okay, so I want to keep this conversation going. So please leave a comment in the section below with your thoughts, and take a minute to like and subscribe our videos, and like the videos, subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening via podcast, please just give us a rating, 5-star rating, because it really does help other people find our content. So what about President Volodymyr Zelenskyy? What could he possibly be thinking? Well, obviously he's not happy, because he has been betrayed to a degree that is also unimaginable. As he said, Ukraine will not accept any peace deal decided without its involvement, which should shock absolutely nobody. In an interview with Kristen Welker on Meet the Press, Zelenskyy stated he would, quote unquote, never accept decisions made by the U.S. and Russia regarding Ukraine's future, even as the two nations prepare, without Ukraine, for negotiations. Take a look at this.
I will never accept any decisions between the United States and Russia about Ukraine. Never. And our people, never. And our adults and children and everybody. It can't be so. This is the war in Ukraine against us, and it's our human losses. We are ready not only to share our plan, we're ready for common plan with the President Trump. And of course, we need support from EU. It's important. They are also big donators during this war, and we will be the members of future European Union. That's why we need the support of Europe. And this common plan we have to discuss with Russians, and we will. And at the table, it's very important to hear America, Europe, Ukraine, and Russia.
Zelenskyy warned that Putin remains a threat to NATO and is waiting for the alliance to weaken. Yes. He also noted that without U.S. support, Ukraine has a low chance of surviving. In an interview with NBC, Zelenskyy also had this to say.
We will have low chance to survive without support of the United States. I think it's very important, critical. But, I don't want to think about it. Yes, we have to think about it. I don't want to think that we will not be strategic partners. I don't want to think about it because it will make a pressure on morality of Ukrainians, and it will be worse the thing from the very beginning of the war. But we increased our production. That we really can count on our level of defending industry, but it's not enough.
Donald has downplayed Ukraine's potential NATO membership, calling it impractical. And he suggested Ukraine is likely to reclaim all of its occupied territories. It is unlikely, I want to repeat that, it is unlikely that Ukraine will reclaim all of its occupied territories. And that is according to the NATO Ortan website from October 2024. That means that Ukraine will lose a significant percentage of its country. And the question is why? Russia illegally invaded Ukraine, took over illegally a lot of its territory, committed war crimes in the process, committed crimes against humanity in the process. Let's not forget, they've kidnapped a lot of children who now live in Russia, perhaps permanently. And why? should Ukraine have to hand over anything. There is only one reasonable solution to this problem. Now, I'm not saying that Ukraine won't make concessions because their lives are on the line. So they may have to, which will be a disaster for everybody. But the only reasonable solution to this problem is for Ukraine to be made whole and Russia to be told to get the fuck out. That is it. Unfortunately, we are no longer Ukraine's ally. Unfortunately, the fascist Trump regime is now wholly aligned with the agenda of murderous dictator Vladimir Putin. Also, I'm sorry to say, all of this could have been avoided if the United States, when we had the chance, gave Ukraine everything it needed to win this war. And we failed them. Another unnecessary tragedy has happened again, this time in Toronto. Watch this clip.
This flight was arriving from Minneapolis. There's the live pictures right there. We are being told now 8 injuries. And yes, that is a Delta aircraft completely upside down.
That plane is inverted, right? That's an upside down airplane. We are hearing 8 injured, no fatalities at this point.
This is a CRJ 900 aircraft. It's slightly bigger than the plane that crashed at DCA just 3 weeks ago. It was arriving from Minneapolis into Toronto's Pearson Airport when it somehow, in these weather conditions, and we're learning the winds were at least 40 miles per hour, it flipped over, potentially some sort of an ice situation.
I don't know about you guys. I am quite hesitant at this point to get on a plane, which is something I have to do in the not too distant future. And I'm wondering if there is some organization that is like putting together a website where people can go to find out if the airports they're flying out of and to are fully staffed with air traffic controllers. I mean, I am not kidding. This is unheard of. Up until this vile idiot got back into the Oval Office, we have had more plane crashes than we have had in many, many years. And it's all because of him and Elon Musk. As a reminder, Donald's, I don't know, administration, whatever you want to call it, his excuse for a government has recently fired hundreds of FAA employees, including radar, landing, and navigation technicians, even after multiple aviation accidents have occurred under his watch, making it clear that we actually need more people working for the FAA. Now, this accident may not be related to that. I don't know. But it definitely isn't making any of us more comfortable with the state of air travel under the Trump regime. I mean, he's got Air Force One to fly around on, so what does he care? Here's more.
And so the next stop for Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency team, or DOGE, the command center for the Federal Aviation Administration's air traffic control.
Secretary Duffy tweeted about this or posted on X and said that the group will, quote, get a first-hand look at the current system, learn what air traffic controllers like and dislike about their current tools, and envision how we can make them a new, better, modern, and safer system. This is coming, though, as we learned over the weekend that there have been at least 300 employees at the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, that were terminated. These are many employees that were probationary, meaning they were just hired within the last year or so?
I do not know what can be done. But Elon Musk has to be removed from this board. He is dangerous. What does he know? What does he know about airline safety or the best equipment to have? I mean, do we seriously think that in airports around the country that they have outdated equipment and we needed Elon Musk to ride in on his horse and save us all from equipment that isn't good enough? No, of course not. Of course not. I mean, it's patently absurd that this guy has a say about anything, let alone this. And again, okay, let's say he shoots the lock off of the wallet that he's put on, our money and starts buying new equipment, what difference does it make if there is nobody there to use it? This is just all a scam. And honestly, I hope somebody is figuring out a way to just clear the field and make sure that he no longer has any authority or power. I don't know how. I honestly don't know how that's going to happen. But as far as from where I'm sitting, that is literally the only path forward, because Donald is going to do absolutely nothing. Why? 1, he doesn't care. 2, he's completely incapable. 3, he's out of his fucking mind. And 4, he probably doesn't know any of this stuff is going on anyway, as long as he gets to be on TV a lot. Now, the Department of Governmental Efficiency is actively pursuing access to the IRS's highly sensitive taxpayer data systems, which could expose the confidential data of millions of Americans, including tax returns, social security numbers, and banking details. That sounds fun. Gavin Kleiger, a software engineer with DOGE, is expected to gain access to the IRS system soon, which plans, and he plans to be stationed there for at least 120 days. Watch this.
There were reports that a DOGE official is looking to get access to what's called the Integrated Data Retrieval System. And as you mentioned, it has a lot of private taxpayer information. It's a highly guarded, secure system that even the IRS commissioner themselves don't necessarily get access to, in part because the IRS doesn't want employees changing anything in regards to someone's tax filings, any of their private information. We don't know yet when or if this DOGE official will get access to this system, but there are watchdog groups and people who have voiced concerns with that. A White House official posted saying, quote, "The hysteria surrounding DOGE's access to data is akin to a patient crying foul when a doctor asks for their medical history. You can't fix a problem if you don't know what it is."
You can't fix a problem that doesn't exist. I mean, they're trying their best. So listen, a lot of these people, like said software engineer, unvetted, no FBI background checks, have access to the IR system. Are you out of your minds? Oh yeah, they are. That's the simplest explanation. Sometimes, Occam's razor is operative and explains it all. Earlier today, Senators Ron Wyden, Democrat of Oregon, and Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, wrote to the acting IRS Commissioner Douglas O'Donnell seeking information about DOGE's access to sensitive IRS systems, as well as expressing valid concerns about potential privacy violations. They wrote, quote, "Software engineers working from us seeking to gain access to tax return information have no right to hoover up taxpayer data and send that data back to any other part of the federal government, and may be breaking the law if they are doing so," unquote. They are breaking the law by doing so. There is literally no rational explanation for why these people, the unelected fledgling dictator and his minions, have access to our personal data. There is no reason these people have access to our payment systems, our Social Security, our Medicaid, our Medicare, SNAP benefits. And yet they do. In a let's add some salt to the wound measure, DOGE recently created accounts on Twitter for both the IRS and the Securities and Exchange Commission, claiming that they look to gain, quote, "insights on identifying and addressing waste, fraud, and abuse," unquote. That's going to end well for us. Many are taking this move as a signal that not only is this not over, it's just getting started. It is just getting started. And honestly, I think we're in the this is how it's going to be phase. The shock and awe phase is behind us. Or it should be. Like, we shouldn't be shocked and awed anymore. This is how it is going to be. It's not like they did a one strike and we're done. They kind of got us all on our back foot. So we were trying to orient ourselves into this new bizarre and quite horrible reality. And now they're just going to keep doing it in new and unimaginable ways. It's hard to prepare for that, isn't it? Today, in a special hearing, which usually does not ever happen on holidays in federal court, Judge Chuckin, hopefully you remember her from Donald's January 6th case that no longer exists, is voicing doubts about attempts to stop Donald's administration, or the Trump regime, as I prefer to call it, from accessing federal data and terminating federal employees. The case focuses on DOGE's actions across 7 federal agencies, including the Office of Personnel Management, the Department of Education, the Department of Labor, the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Energy, the Department of Transportation, and the Department of Commerce. Judge Chuckin stated from the bench, quote, "The things that I'm hearing are serious and troubling indeed, but you're saying these things that we're hearing, I'm not seeing it so far." She continued, saying that she needed to see more specifics aside from a generalized fear that this is going to happen. That doesn't sound good to me. Judge Chuckin has not yet made a ruling, but stated that a decision will be issued within 24 hours. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't want to dig too deep into this until I see more about what Judge Chuckin is going to say, hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday. But I guess what worries me is that because this is without precedent, how are courts going to handle some of this? I respect Judge Chuckin very much, so I know that she will follow the law. I guess my question is, what is it in this matter? And I do not know. But again, I'm not a lawyer, so that may be completely meaningless, and I may just be freaking myself out. But we'll see. We'll see shortly. So the Justice Department filed an emergency appeal asking the Supreme Court to overturn a lower court ruling that temporarily instated Hampton Dellinger as head of the Office of Special Counsel, a watchdog protecting whistleblower. OSC is also responsible for upholding the Hatch Act. Well, didn't do a very good job of that, but okay. I mean, at least you still believe that's a thing that needs to happen, but maybe, I don't know, maybe if they tried to enforce the Hatch Act, they wouldn't have any time for anything else, given who's in office. The case is called Besant versus Dellinger, and could determine whether presidents can fire heads of independent agencies at will. Doesn't sound like they should be able to. Donald has already dismissed officials at the National Labor Relations Board and the Merit Systems Protection Board, targeting agencies with legal safeguards against political interference. The court previously limited protections for independent agencies in Silo Law versus CFPB. That was back in 2020. And Justices Clarence Thomas and Neil Gorsuch have openly called for overturning the 1935 precedent that restricts presidential firing power. I am so shocked right now. This is yet another setup to a potential constitutional crisis. Yes, yet another actual constitutional crisis is on the horizon here. And here's CBS News contributor Jessica Levinson with more.
I will say my personal view is there's a constitutional crisis if the Trump administration or any other presidential administration looks at a Supreme Court decision and says, no, thank you. We're not there yet. Right now, what the Trump administration is doing is appealing. That's being part of the system, saying, I don't agree with what a lower court judge said, and now I'm going to the Supreme Court. But the Supreme Court has no army. They have no ability other than issuing an order of contempt to make sure that people comply with their orders.
And that's the problem. Who is going to enforce a ruling if it goes against the Trump regime? I'm telling you, they are the process of printing up T-shirts that say "You and what army?" Because that is where we are heading. The emergency appeal appeal may be resolved within days, but the court could avoid addressing the broader constitutional question immediately, which sounds exactly like something the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court would do. If they back Donald on procedure, it could embolden him to escalate attacks on other federal agencies. And that is the problem here. The deck is stacked in his favor, and it is stacked largely in his favor, largely because the corrupt, illegitimate supermajority of the Supreme Court wants it to be. Over the weekend, the New York Times reported that New York City Mayor Eric Adams plans to sue this is confusing to me, but bear with me, sue the Trump regime over the clawback of $80 million in FEMA funds meant for migrant shelters, marking one of the first known instances of federally seized congressionally appropriated funds from a locality. Watch this.
They give everyone in our care. There's nothing going to change with that. There's a level of consistency, what we have accomplished, and we're going to continue to do that.
But Adams' resolve is already being tested. City Hall confirming that the federal government has now clawed back more than $80 million in FEMA grants the Biden administration awarded the city to house migrants. Adams says that they are requesting an emergency meeting with FEMA and are exploring all legal options. But immigration is one of the reasons why the Justice Department is asking prosecutors to drop the charges, writing in their memo that Adams' indictment was pulling his focus away from issues like illegal immigration and crime. Coincidentally, Trump's border czar Tom Homan is meeting with Adams in the city on Thursday. But Adams' attorney Alex Spiro insists that Adams never promised anything in order to get these charges dropped.
Of course not. That's absurd. There is no looming threat. This case is over. This case will never be brought back. It wasn't a real case in the first place.
Okay, that is not true. None of that is true. What that lawyer just said, all a lie. They absolutely did ask for a quid pro quo. It is operative. We know this because Danielle Sassoon and others in the Justice Department who resigned in protest told us this, and I believe them a lot more than I believe the criminal Eric Adams. It is very confusing, though. Like, why is Eric Adams growing a spine here? The only thing I can think of is that it's because of what I'm going to discuss next. In connection to Adams' case, which again is probably going nowhere ever, New York Governor Kathy Hochul is facing growing calls from fellow Democrats to remove the New York City mayor amid all of the legal and political crises tied to Donald's immigration policies. Hochul has avoided taking a firm stance, but has not ruled out the action. Here's a clip.
The Bondi administration in that Department of Justice is already showing they're corrupt. Now, set that aside. I did see the letter that was issued by the acting United States attorney. The allegations are extremely concerning and serious.
Yes.
But I cannot, as the governor of this state, have a knee-jerk, politically motivated reaction like a lot of other people are saying right now. I have to do what's smart, what's right, and I'm consulting with other leaders in government at this time.
Yeah, yes, you can. I mean, we know how much more Democrats have to stop being so goddamn careful, honestly. I mean, we know what happened. We know it wasn't concerning because the quid pro quo wasn't concerning because it may have happened. It did happen. This was a corrupt bargain from the get-go. 4 top deputy mayors, including First Deputy Mayor Maria Torres Springer, are resigning over concerns about Adams' handling of immigration matters, further destabilizing City Hall. A top DOJ official resigned, alleging that the quid pro quo between Adams and the Trump regime to dismiss the corruption charges was the trigger. While Adams denies wrongdoing, calls for his resignation are increasing, as they should, with Hochul's own lieutenant governor breaking ranks to demand Adams step down. Governor Hochul is facing low approval ratings, largely because of her egregious missteps about congestion pricing in New York City and a 2020 reelection bid. She risked political fallout regardless of her decision, and ousting Adams, well, I guess probably one of the things she's thinking about is that ousting Adams could alienate black voters, but I think that black voters understand exactly what's going on here. And keeping him, of course, could damage her standing with key Democratic leaders. Here's the thing, though. Eric Adams is not currently mayor of New York City. Donald Trump is by proxy, because Donald Trump is holding the threat of reopening the case against Adams over Adams' head. He is not an independent agent. He is certainly not working for the people of New York City. He's agreed to things regarding immigration policy and following the lead of the execrable so-called border czar Tom Homan. And he is not serving in the best interest of the people who put him in office in the first place. New York, please get better at picking your mayors. Thank you. Okay. It is time for the emotional support moment. Did you know this? I did not know this. Loggerhead sea turtles. Oh, this is going to drive Donald crazy. You'll see why in a second. Loggerhead sea turtles use Earth's magnetic field, the monsters, for navigation. They rely on magnetic map and compass to locate nesting and feeding grounds. Oh my God. Loggerhead turtles and magnets. It's a new obsession for Donald. A new study found that juvenile loggerheads memorize magnetic fields, even dancing in response to cues that remind them of past feeding locations. Here's a clip. This is a moment of zen, if you will, where we can just relax. Just relax for a second and watch. Okay. Who knew? Who knew there was a loggerhead version of the Snoopy dance? I mean, that's amazing. Also, who thinks this stuff up? Let's see if baby loggerhead turtles use magnetic fields to find food. Sure. That seems reasonable. Anyway, I hope somebody sends that to Donald so he can start freaking out about magnets and turtles. That would be fun. Get to work, guys. Come on, flood the White House. It'll give him something to do that other than destroying the planet. All right, let me get to your questions and or comments and or thank you. Betty Beth C, thank you so much, super sticker. Very kind of you. Oh, and you're back. And you're back again. Thank you, Betty Beth. That's awesome. Let's see. AJ Vintage, thank you so much for being a super sticker and for that awesome donation. Deborah Torres, thank you very much. Another super sticker. Carolyn, very generous of you. Thank you so much. Comment, our government has been stolen. We have the right to disobey the thieves' actions. And here's the question, but how without more states participating? Yeah, herein lies the problem. I mean, that honestly, that's something we can't really worry about right now, because I don't think there's any mechanism to get red states to stop, killing people and destroy their lives, because they seem to like it. But I still believe Governor Hochul's hesitation vis-a-vis Eric Adams notwithstanding, that it will be up to the blue states to start shifting things, or at least making sure that as many people as possible are protected. And then, we'll have to take it from there. Gloria, thank you so very much. Mariana, thank you as always. Much appreciated. Shanice, thank you very much. Comment, thank you for all you do and your unwavering patriotism. Well, thank you for saying that. And honestly, I am not particularly comfortable. I'm trying to get comfortable with it. Like with the whole patriotism flag thing, makes me a little uncomfortable. But I think, yeah, we have to embrace that, because they're fascists. And they do not have any patriotism, and they do not deserve the flag. So I'm working on it. Q, that is the question. Comment, hundreds more workers laid off and given their walking papers. Yeah, that's why planes keep falling out of the sky or landing upside down, which is not a world I want to live in. Jill G, comment, I guess women will need to keep their birth surnames. Well, I mean, I think part of this diabolical plan, and I'm not kidding, is that in red states in particular, they'll just have, they'll do away with the danger of married women voting Democrat behind their husbands' backs. That's my theory. Jesus, it's just incredible. But remember, I know, we've made a lot of progress in a short period of time up until now, or actually up until 2016. Women could not have a credit card in their own name up until, I think, 1976. Married women, without their husband's permission. I don't want to date myself, but I was alive. So indulge me and pretend that it wasn't that long ago. Thank you. Deborah, yeah, Denmark, take me away. Yes, Calgon is not going to cut it. Warren, thank you so much for being a super sticker and for that donation. Cheryl, you too, very generous of you, and I'm so sorry about what's happening in Canada. I really am. Robert, comment, let me be clear, NATO is still very capable of beating Russia without the US. Robert, I hope you're right, and what I hope happens is that one, that is indeed the case, and two, that if it does happen, because I'm pretty sure it will, who's going to stop him? Donald withdraws from NATO, and the United States becomes irrelevant. That's my hope. Like that's all we got right now. At least in terms of geopolitical issues. Ms. Harmony, thank you so very much for being a super sticker and for that. Diane, that is very generous of you. And this is your comment. I was hoping you'd talk about Kash Patel because I was eager to share that just today I realized that look in his eyes is exactly what I used to see in my acid-dropping Berkeley classmates. Saying it anyway. I cannot comment on that because I have never done or been around anybody who's dropped acid. So, and also, I don't know. I just think he's a deeply, deeply psychologically disordered person who should not be anywhere near any levers of power. But you would know better than I in terms of the acid stuff. Stephanie, thank you so much. Your comment. Thank you, Mary, for all you do. You're very welcome. I was wondering what your opinion is when it comes to Donald's mental state. So the question is, do you think he has some form of dementia along with his narcissistic personality disorder? It's a perfectly valid question, but I've made it a policy since the very beginning not to diagnose him. The main reason is he's my uncle. It would be wildly unprofessional. Also, like he was never my patient. He's never taken any psychological tests. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of data floating around. I think I think that psychologists, psychiatrists, et cetera, should start diagnosing him and making those diagnoses public. Neurologist, a neuropsychologist, yes, they should absolutely be doing that. The Goldwater rule should no longer apply. We are in totally different times right now. But this is the other thing. This is the other thing. It doesn't matter. We see it. We see how he's behaving. We see how he's speaking. We see how he seems to be deteriorating physically. If we had a diagnosis, would it help us negotiate things better? No. I'm not saying you're wrong to want to know. It's always better to have that information, but it will change nothing except our understanding of how this is all unfolding. And it should be happening. I mean, I've said this a while ago, that during the election, yes, it's lovely. We had all those lawyers on discussing all the legal stuff, but then the legal stuff kind of went away for a while. And at the height of the campaign, it kind of looked like Donald Trump's brains were melting out of his ears. We should have had panels of experts. Again, psychologists, psychiatrists, neuropsychologists, neurologists, et cetera, just as we should have had many, many more panels of experts on fascism. And it didn't happen. And now I do not know what it profits us. Thank you, V, for that. That's very generous. Super sticker. Thank you, Edie. Also very kind of you. Another super sticker. Myra, another super sticker. Thank you very much, Myra. Fred, very generous of you. Your comment. Thank you for everything. Dr. Mary Trump, you're very welcome. I am so grateful that I'm able to do this. From Jay Deaton, thank you. Another super sticker. And Tammy V, thank you. That's very generous of you. Another super sticker. From Lynette, thank you so much for that donation. And the question is Donald sedated? A 4-year-old denigrated him. No, he was aware. He was absolutely aware of what was going on with the Elon Musk's child. If you looked at his face, he knew. But whether or not he's sedated, I have no idea. Laura, thank you so very much. Super sticker. That's very generous of you. Becky, thank you. Comment. We cannot allow MAGAs to steal our American patriotic symbols. Thank you for being here, Marion, for using your voice for good. We appreciate you. I appreciate all of you. And I agree with you. We have to take that stuff back. I think historically it's just been problematic for me, but I'll get over it. We'll all do that, right? We'll all start taking that stuff back. Kendra, super sticker. Thanks as always, Kendra. And Tyler, thank you, Tyler. Another super sticker. And again, I'm so sorry about what's happening in Canada. Or I should say, I'm so sorry about what the United States of America and this fascist regime are doing to our incredible neighbor to the north that has been an incredible ally for us all of these years. Okay, so I just want to take a second to wish Robert Carr good luck tomorrow. He is a very big supporter of our channel, and he has a big day tomorrow. I'm not going to say what it is, but please wish him well. And Robert, please check in with us when you're back. We will be thinking of you. So thank you for all of your support as well. That does it for us. Thank you so much for being here. I think it's Monday. I'm losing track. I know why, because it's not a holiday anymore, but it was a day off for a lot of people. So we will be back tomorrow night, every weeknight, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern time. The nerds will be here, 12 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, we have lots of other videos dropping. So again, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell. You'll be alerted every time new videos do drop. And to everybody watching on YouTube, to everybody streaming on Twitter, to everybody listening to the podcast, we so appreciate you. We appreciate your comments, which are awesome. And of course, we appreciate our moderators who keep everything running. And of course, last but not least, as they say, my extraordinary team for doing everything they do. Wait, there's one more that I missed. PJ, thank you so very, very much. And you say, thanks for everything, Mary. Well, you guys make it easy. So thank you, all of you. All right, that does it for us. Back tomorrow. Have a great night. In the meantime, everybody, please stay safe and be kind. Bye.